Welcome back, or welcome to the Matt and Carly podcast. This is episode number 19. According to our calculations for the year of 2020, when we first started this, and keep in mind it is 2020, we were shooting for one a week. Our new goal is just 20 in 2020. So, or if we still want to hit that average, if we do 33 podcasts in the next 27 days, we will reach that goal.
We'll just slide into that 52.
Right in.
52. It's doable.
It's been a long.
It is.
I saw somebody shared a meme
doable.
the other day, and it was like, this year has been the longest, shortest year. It's so true. It's just weird. Anyways, so yeah, welcome. This is episode number 19, and we have a jam-packed schedule today. We're going to talk about some interesting things here on the Lewis farm. Right?
If you want to call it that.
The Lewis homestead, the old...
My wife went a little nutty this year. I don't know if it was like the whole quarantine deal or if it was like something in the air. But yeah, this episode is going to be on our new chickens. We got chickens, everybody.
We have chickens.
We have 8 chickens.
We did it. And if you've been following along this podcast in the last one of the last couple podcasts, we talked about getting them. I've been thinking about chickens for probably 5 years now. I know it sounds really weird. That was probably the weirdest sentence that's ever come out of my mouth. I've been thinking about getting chickens for on and off for, a while. It's been a lofty goal.
She's been talking about it, and I've been telling her no for probably a year.
More like, it was like a delayed yes, I would say. It was like a...
Tell us how it all started. So we got chickens.
Oh, okay.
We have. That's what this podcast is about. We have chickens. We have successfully built a chicken coop.
Yes.
And now Carly is like a chicken mother.
I'm a chicken lady.
And we've got chickens running around, and they're pretty cute.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us how it started.
Well, probably, let's see, almost close to 3 or 4 years now. When we first found out that we were going to be living in an area or a place that had some land, I was like, ooh, I don't know why, but I've always had this vision or this thought in my head of, living off of the land, like at some point. And Matt and I met back in college, and we used to hunt, and you guys, whoever follows us, knows.
I'm wearing a camouflage shirt.
There you go. It's a dead giveaway. Yeah. So we've always talked about, pre-marriage and pre-engagement and all that stuff. We've talked about owning land and living somewhere where we can do things on land, whatever. Not on water, on land. So the thought's always been there. I've always been like, man, it would be so cool to have a garden and like chickens and do the best that we can do to live.
If you had a chicken coop, like on a floating dock, would you call them the chicken of the sea?
Oh.
Would you call
Are you referencing a Jessica Simpson moment?
Yeah.
I know it's chicken, or I know it's tuna, but is it chicken? I watched that again recently, and I was like, wow, that really was pretty stupid.
What would chickens do if you put their coop on a floating thing in the middle of water? They'd
probably
walk off and die.
Evolve and fly and or get webbed feet.
Yeah, I think
it would take a while, though.
Our chickens would just walk off the corner of it and die, probably.
Maybe.
They're pretty stupid.
Yeah.
As of right now, they're pretty stupid.
They're not quite there mentally.
Sorry,
yet.
I totally interrupted.
No, you're okay.
Interrupted your story.
You're okay. I'm a long-winded storyteller. You know this. So I've been thinking about it for a long time. Finally, we had a place that we have land. It's, a place that we can practice for a bigger vision that we might have in the future. We don't know. But what's really cool is we've talked about it for a while. And finally this year, given the circumstance of we were rudely forced to stay home. And we complied. We had a lot of time on our hands, and, we probably picked up the average amount of quarantine projects, would you say? We reorganized a lot of stuff. We went through a lot of stuff. We went through a lot. We decluttered, basically a lot. I painted a bunch of stuff and like sanded things, and we got saws out. Yeah, we had like all the tools, the black leather gloves, the research and development. We had all of it.
We did quite a few projects this year.
Yeah. So just to top it off, in early fall, it was like, and okay, this is a disclaimer. I am not an expert. Don't listen to me. Like, whatever you do, whoever's listening to this, if anybody just stumbles upon this podcast, this is 100% just my experience. And I'm going to just share the cumulative knowledge I've gained from the internet and from people that I know personally, that I have picked their brains about chickens and like homesteading. And okay. That's a disclaimer.
You're selling yourself short. We got some little tiny chicks. We managed to not have any of them die.
Yeah.
And they're all healthy. Matters. And they, we did it.
That's our parenting approach, basically. Yeah. It's just like
if we can do it, anybody can.
Yeah.
Well, not anybody, but like mostly anybody can.
So take what I'm saying with like a grain of salt and do your own research, like just get out there and like just add it all up. Okay.
I would say this. If you had the ability to just go out and buy a pre-manufactured chicken coop with a chicken run, or just pay someone to do it for you,
it really wouldn't be that hard.
Chickens are the easiest thing in the world.
It's kind of weird. I thought it was going to be a lot more challenging.
No. Yeah. No, it's easy.
They're pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah. Like
for the most part.
I mean, so we've had them in there, like they were in the brooder thing. Like getting big.
Wait, before we get into that, hold on. Okay. We'll like circle back really quick. Because, we got into like we did our quarantine projects. We did, we were doing the not super labor intensive things where it's like, oh, this is really a new thing. We just like picked apart our house, did a couple updates, moved some stuff around, whatever. And then I was like, I don't know. I like found a couple people's YouTube channels, and because I had been thinking about it for a while, and like it was almost kind of soothing to like at night when the kids would go to bed, it was like I would just be like, I'm really interested in learning a lot more. Pour
yourself a glass of wine, get in the bathtub, put on your chicken videos.
It's not a joke. Like I would really be like, you know what? I'm just gonna like learn. And okay, here's the deeper meaning of all this.
You're kind of creeping me out with all this,
right?
Like, this premeditated chicken behavior. I didn't even know this was going on.
I told you that. So
what? Okay.
So basically, part of the deeper part of my being was like, grocery stores are running out of food, right? You can call it panic buying. You can call it media-driven fear, whatever it is. Yeah. It got my little brain a-thinking. And I was like, I've always just really thought about... And the weird thing was when I was thinking about having a garden and possibly having chickens or like animals that can provide our family with like food, I never thought about it in the sense that, but what if there's not other stuff that you can... So it was never this feeling of like, I need to do this because it's more of like a necessity. And then all of a sudden and I'm sure that a lot of people went through this in that time because there was such a weird thing where there was just so much weird shit that happened. So many panic moments. It was like, great, now we have to learn how to make toilet paper. Perfect. I don't know how to do that. Like you got some old t-shirts. I mean, it was really weird. There was a weird time that we all went through.
Is that where all my t-shirts went?
No, I didn't get to that point. I was just preparing for that.
Okay.
So, like whatever. So that was like the deeper part of this was like, hey, why not? Like, let's try it. The investment, the time and effort investment up front it's like heavy loaded in the beginning, right? Like you have to do the work to get the chickens, to learn how they work. You have to have the brooder, have the lights. We actually had a lot of that stuff because we raised a turkey once, which was really weird. That was a weird. That's a story.
Podcast on that?
No, that's a story for a whole nother time. But yeah, like the investment up front initially is you have to have the proper equipment to build the coop if you want to build one, or you have to order one, or whatever it is. You have to like prepare your area, and then you have to buy the chickens, and basically you have to raise them until they're old enough to go outside. So it's, there's an investment up front. We're in like maintenance mode right now. We've gotten all that stuff. We've gotten to the point where we're good. And now it's like just the daily maintenance of feeding them, making sure their coop is safe. There's no holes around the edges, like checking them, letting them out and like running, whatever. So we've gotten to that point now. But I think the real part of the reason why I was like, let's do this, this is cool, is really thinking about, having something that is allowing us to be a little bit more self-sustaining when it comes to
Absolutely.
food. Like, it's just cool, and it's the same feeling that I get when we hunt or when you bring home venison or whatever.
It's no different than having a garden.
Yeah.
But if you do it right, it's like having a garden year round.
Pretty much.
Provides you something.
Yeah.
Like every single day.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
It is very cool. So it's a thing I've been thinking about for a long time. And it was one of those like 2020 moments where your brain's just all over the place and you're like, why not? Let's just do it. What do we got to lose? So anyways, we did it. We did it.
It was a process. I mean, so
yeah, there was a lot that went into it.
Like I said, I had said no to the idea probably 100 times. And then Carly so nicely surprised me with a box full of chicks in the car one day.
You were close to yes, though. You were closest.
We were talking about it.
You were closest to that delayed yes.
And, I learned something about myself is that usually, if Carly were to surprise me with something, I could just be like, no, not going to happen. I could like stand my ground. I had a hard time telling her to take the 4 chicks back that she showed our children in the car. I couldn't make myself do it. So we were proud chicken owners that day.
I get lots of surprises from you, though. So, I mean, it was your turn.
But I will say,
it was finally your turn to get a nice surprise.
4. And what were the first 4? They were the silver-laced Wyandottes.
Yes.
Okay, so they're like black and white looking little chickens.
Yeah.
And my motto in life is go big or go home.
And we're already home.
Yeah, so you might as well go big.
Go big.
So I said, well, if you're going to have 4 chickens, you better go get at least 4 more so they can have buddies.
Yeah, ironically, when we got those chickens, we got the 4, and I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, we'll start with 4. Let's see how the season goes.
And these are fall chickens.
These are fall
chicks.
Yes. So I don't know.
Which were like 4 days old.
Yeah.
Or something
I don't know
like
what
that.
the percentages of people that buy chicks in the fall versus spring or whatever.
I didn't even know you could do it.
Yeah, I didn't either. But apparently there's like the local farm and ranch stores, a lot of there are online chicken dealers like, I don't know.
The chicken dark web.
Chicken dark web. There's a lot of
the dark chicken meat web.
There's a lot of avenues that you can go down to order chicks or to buy chicks. Yeah. And I didn't know any of this until I started to look. But there are basically, I think from the spring through the fall, there are chickens available. You can buy them year round. I mean, we could buy chickens online right now, but like for the most part, the big box retailers or whatever, they have like seasonal whatever.
I mean, like we got what did you pay for the first 4?
They were 25 cents a piece.
Yeah, they were like at the end of this, weird. They were like, just take them away from our store.
Basically they were just trying to get them out because they were ready to like.
For $1.
Yeah, it's so weird. That also blew my mind because I was thinking in my head, like, you go to the store, you buy goldfish. It's kind of similar, but they're like
$1.
Goldfish are a little bit more expensive than chickens, I think, which is so weird.
Yeah.
Or like,
And we did buy them as females. Like we knew they were going to be pullets. We didn't have roosters mixed in there, which was even better. They
warn you also at the store. There's like a little asterisk at the bottom of the thing, and it says
this is not guaranteed.
There are straight run groups, and then there are pullets, and then there are, I don't know if they do male only.
And straight runs are where it's like male and female.
Straight runs are just like you get what you get
because you can't really tell.
Right. It's a
there's
grab
like
bag.
there's some like really weird invasive process where they have to like turn them inside out or something to
like sexing a chicken, I believe. Yeah, it's you have to actually be very skillful in your ability to do that, and it takes years of training as like a veterinary some person or like some type of animal, small animal, whatever. Like you have to know what you're doing because you can actually hurt them. We're very well
informed in this.
There's a lot of information I've gathered and put into my brain.
The good news was somebody did that for us and we knew they were going to be female hens.
We're 98% sure we have all females. There's one that's got its comb.
One of them we thought was a rooster.
A little bit
was
bigger.
Going to be a rooster, but it doesn't look like a rooster
might be
now.
A big hen.
Yeah.
I think.
Either way, it's a jerk.
We'll find out. Yeah, she's a big bully. So yeah, we decided we were going to do the chickens. You were on board. I
was voluntold.
I mean,
to build a chicken coop.
Like
at that point.
you saw, if you could see my chicken media consumption pre-chickens, it was like this. He knew because I was watching so many. It was like, okay, cool. We finished another project. We're good. Like Lila and Lauren are homeschooling. Like, okay. And then all of a sudden I was just like, chicken videos. And he
I
was
was
like,
seeing
babe, what are you
chicken
doing?
video search terms popping up all over the place. And I was like, why am I getting like chicken ads on my YouTube and
he
stuff?
knew it was coming. So, I mean, we we got there. So we had a brooder. I bought this weird, it's not my best. Like, I wish I would have had a better brooder for them initially, but it worked. It worked for what it was. But we had like a big plastic tote. And then Matt built this like basically this little like goalpost looking thing just to hang the light on so it wasn't on the plastic. We had
so we had it was a big blue like Rubbermaid tote that was probably 2.5 feet long by like a foot and a half wide,
big,
and it was tall. It was like 2 feet tall, so it was like one of the big ones you put like you know, winter clothing in and stuff. And the pullets were like this big,
babies.
So the mistake we did make, I made, was that when we got the chicks, we had 8. So I talked her into getting 4 more.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. I had 4 and I was like, okay, let's pump the brakes. 4 is good.
And I was like, no, I wanted to do 12 because I'm like, I was doing the math on this thing and I'm like, if we're going to do this for eggs, like we need to at least have enough chickens to give us enough eggs that we eat. Because we eat, the kids eat eggs, we eat eggs, whatever.
We eat eggs. That's an important thing. We eat eggs every day.
Yeah, pretty much every day.
A lot.
Some type of an egg, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had 4 and pretty much every place around us that was selling chicks, they were like either gone or it wasn't guaranteed, or they didn't have the breed that we wanted. So we ended up finding 4. we ended up finding 4 like an hour and a half away at a Tractor Supply Co. And they were what are the ones?
The Buff Orpingtons.
Buff Orpingtons.
It's a mouthful.
And I ended up talking the guy down because they wanted like $4 a piece. And I'm like, listen, man, we just paid $0.25 a piece. I'm like, and we're going to drive an hour and a half to come get these things. Cause I'm like, can you make me a deal? So he sold them to us for $4.
Yeah.
$1 a piece. And he was like wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
He made it sound like they had like a few left. They had like 8,000 of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we got over and we got 4. And so we had 8. And like we still may get 4 more. We want the Easter eggers.
Or the olive eggers.
Olive eggers, cool. Sure.
They have the color of the egg is blue for the Easter eggers.
I want one of the big brown ones.
The ISA browns or ISA browns?
The ones that are big brown chickens.
Or the Rhode Island Reds?
No, I
think they're the ISA browns.
The ISA browns? Yeah, I like those chickens.
I've heard I think it's ISA. I say ISA, but I don't think that's right. Anyways.
Either way. So we ended up getting 8 chickens, and I knew at one point I was going to have to build a chicken coop. And I was dragging my feet really, really bad because I'm like, well, maybe they'll all die,
You were just waiting it out.
Maybe something will happen, like a raccoon will get into the garage where we have them, and like maybe I won't have to build a coop. Well, that was wrong. And the chickens grew really, really fast.
They do grow so fast.
Like they grew so fast. And I'm like, oh man.
I gotta build a coop.
Yeah, and we were not in a place where I was going to go out and drop a bunch of money on like chicken coop building supplies.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing almost everything that was on like the culling rack. So if you've ever, I don't know, I think this is pretty much every Home Depot.
Yeah, probably.
But back in the lumber section, they'll usually have a cart, like a lumber cart, and they'll spray paint, the culled lumber. So it'll have cracks. It'll be, warped or whatever. And they sell it to you for like 70% off of whatever the real price is.
Yeah.
So, and I had gotten wood back there for different projects or whatever. But we got pretty lucky because I initially bought like a big pile of pressure treated stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm just like me with a like construction brain. I was thinking, oh, I'll make everything out of pressure treated.
Right.
And it'll be totally good. Well, it didn't work out so great that way, but we ended up finding pretty much everything. We kind of hit a home run, and I ended up finding a bunch of like 2x12s, 2x8s, 2x10s that were like 8 and 10 feet long. And I just ran everything through a table saw at our house. And most of the stuff that was cracked or whatever, I just cut off or, trimmed out. And we ended up with a really big pile of usable 2x4s, basically, that we ended up making the run and a lot of the coop out of. So
it's really helpful to have all the tools that we had up front. Honestly, I don't know if I would have jumped into it if we wouldn't have had all of that stuff, because it would have just been impossible to build anything. We've gotten to the place in life now, which is really exciting, because we've been in a place before where we have not had the tools to build things that are just little things that are, it's just inconvenient when you don't have a good saw or, whatever.
If we didn't have access to like our miter saw and the table saw for sure, and like, I mean, at the end of it, like we ended up putting hardware cloth on it, which is essentially like heavy duty chicken wire. But when we went to put that on, we used an air compressor and a staple, like a pneumatic stapler. Yeah. And I can't even imagine like the amount of staples that we put into
so many.
The inside to put, so like our chicken run it's basically 16 feet long by 8 feet wide. Yeah. Is that what we did?
6 feet wide.
6 feet wide?
Yeah.
6 feet wide. Is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah. 16 by 6. I can't remember. But essentially it has hardware cloth. Yeah. That covers the whole thing. And we just like loaded it, with staples.
Just to make sure it was
I can't imagine trying to do it even with like the swinging stapler.
Yeah.
Boy,
no,
it would have taken a long time.
I can tell you right now, if we wouldn't have had all that stuff up front, I don't think I would have even entertained the idea, because I knew I mean, you built this table, you've built a lot of other things. I mean, even having like the Craig jig, just like the little
it
weird
takes a lot
things,
of stuff.
It really does. But we're at the point in life now where we have all that stuff. So when you think, my like kryptonite is you go on Pinterest and you're like, oh my God, I could do everything on here. And it's like we've gotten to the point where you can see stuff, or you can visualize what you want to do for your home and be like, hey, I can actually do this. And it's not going to cost $5,000 like up front, because I already have all these tools. And it's like now, if we need something, it's like little filler things. Yeah. It's like, oh, I need a different bit, or I need to go get like some like little tool that is helpful, but we don't have it right away.
Like pretty much everything we used for the coop itself, besides, and talk about like when I actually did buy legitimate like pre-manufactured lumber, like I remember just 6 months ago, like a 2x4. I think my mom and I did a project with my dad, and I redid their front porch, and the 2x4s we paid for ended up being like $3.50 for an 8-foot long 2x4. Right. Now they're like $6. So when I went in there, I was like, well, we're going to need like a few 2x4s. And I looked at the cost and I'm like, no. So we ended up going with 2x3s, which were like $3.50 a board. And at that point, I was just like, then we started looking at the culled lumber, the rack back there, and just checking it every time we went into town. But it worked out because we had a pile of old construction screws, and I had nails, and like...
We used a lot of scrap stuff that we had too from like some shelves we built in the garage, and so that was important. I mean, I knew we had some raw materials that we could reuse, and then after you told me about the clearance rack or whatever, I was like, well, cool. Like we have more time than money at this point for that type of project, so we can just check, like you said, every day. And it's crazy because at our Home Depot, there was a guy. One of the workers that you talked to said there was a guy that comes in like every morning or something, or every time, and he like buys it all regardless of what it is. I don't know what the guy's doing, but
so
it's interesting.
When I went in and talked to the guy, because I was like, when we used to work for Cabela's, or when I was around Cabela's had something called the bargain cave, which was like a clearance area in the store. So I was always in there trying to like wheel and deal, and it's basically the same thing. Like the rack at Home Depot in the lumber section is basically like the bargain cave, where you go in, you don't know what's going to be there. Yeah. And you really have to look it over and like think about what's usable and what's not. So in my mind, I was like, well, maybe I could talk to the people that put the stuff on. Yeah. And I'm like, do they do it at a certain time?
You got to know those people really well.
The guy made the comment. He's like, you've been in here so much, we're going to like start making you like fill out timesheets and stuff. But so the guy says, he goes, it's kind of just whenever we find something bad, it gets put on. So, throughout the day, he goes, but we have this guy locally that comes in every morning at 6 a.m., comes back, and whatever's on the rack, he buys it and takes it. And it's like,
it's interesting.
So he goes, you're going to have to be in here like throughout the day. Right. And we've gotten lucky a few times where, like even the guy that was like spray painting it, a couple times there was some stuff on the rack that wasn't painted, and I was looking it over, and there were like little damaged things, and he was like, is this really on the rack? And I'm like, it was sitting there, you know. So like part of the time they were like, wow, this is, you know, like a $40 board for $5 or wwhatever it is.
I was joking.
It's a good deal
because it's like it's a very bright, like Barney purple that they paint it. And I'm just like, couldn't, if you were a horrible human being, couldn't you just like go get a can of spray paint and be like, psh, like that's all of the wood? That's so bad. It's bad.
I'm sure people have tried to do it.
Probably.
But no, we got lucky. And like I said, for whatever reason, like the dimensions that we build the coop. So we ended up doing the math, and based on like us having 8 chickens, we came up with the floor layout for the actual chicken coop itself. We made it elevated.
Yeah.
So like the inside of the coop where the chickens actually walk around is about 2 feet off the ground. And we did use some pressure treated wood, like on the underside of the coop.
Where they're not going to, there's a weird
like
controversy.
The whole thing is not pressure treated, like a few boards.
Right.
Are.
The inner part where they're actually inside, they're not going to be.
They don't have access
exposed.
To get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's kind of a weird controversy. So pressure treated lumber, and again, this is like disclaimer, I'm not an expert, but pressure treated lumber, I guess back in the day was made with like copper chromium, some crazy shit that's like
not good for you.
Toxic. So basically if you eat it, it's toxic to you or to pets or to whatever. So the theory was if you bury this pressure treated lumber in the ground, the soil will absorb it, and then they eat the soil and it like gets into their system, and then it gets into the eggs and you eat the eggs. Okay. So that's the theory.
Well, and for people that don't know, pressure treated lumber is basically lumber that is intended to be used outside.
Yeah.
Or in direct contact with soil or where it's going to get wet. And it's basically, I think it's actually like pressurized
with chemicals.
Yeah,
like,
it's a actual chemical that they put the wood under pressure, and it basically absorbs into the wood and infuses like into the grain, and it prevents water rotting and just typical rotting. Yeah. So it's very moisture resistant. You can lay it on the ground. It's not going to do the same thing as like a normal piece of wood.
So obviously
it's not pressure treated.
Yeah. So obviously for like outdoor home building projects, decks and stuff like that, it makes sense. But I've talked to a couple people, and I don't know how accurate this is, but there were a few people at Home Depot, and then like I've watched a couple videos that, oh God, I just made myself sound so stupid. I'm like, oh, my uncle knows this one thing. But yeah, like, I don't know. The jury's kind of like undecided, I think, where now they don't make it with as toxic of chemicals, or they're more aware that if people are building things and they're putting this lumber into the like whoever the manufacturers are of lumber, they're like, oh hey, we probably shouldn't put a bunch of really toxic stuff in this. We should figure out a better, like more environmental way that it's, you know, better. Yeah. So anyways, there was a guy at Home Depot I talked to, and he was like, yeah, I actually have a big homestead, and like I've used it. I don't know, who knows, but you know, he looked
at us like we were crazy.
Well, we talked to him about
like, what do you think about using pressure treated lumber?
Yeah, we talked to him about the theory and of like why we were nervous to use it. And he was like, listen, like, you know, it's come a long way. A lot of people have talked about that in the past because it was such a different process, but now the process is a little bit better.
Different.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't know, whatever, but either way, we made sure that it wasn't buried in the ground and that it is, away from where they're going to be eating and like pecking and whatever.
So one of the big things, and I watched a ton of videos like that were around like the different methods of like venting a chicken coop and like the size and the way the roof should be and like all that stuff. And one of the big things that was mentioned is that some people felt that using pressure treated lumber for the run, and so the chicken run is actually the part outside of the coop that is enclosed, that basically keeps them in a spot. So if you're going to do a chicken run and it's going to be on the ground and it's going to be a small area, some people were like, well, that's when the pressure treated lumber is like kind of iffy because they're concentrated in one spot for a very long time, for like years at a time. Yeah. If you're going to do, like as an example, if you're going to build a chicken coop, just a chicken coop, and let your chickens free range, just open the door and let them go in your yard or whatever, it doesn't really make a difference
Yeah,
because they're going to be all
too.
over the place.
Right.
Or like, what do they call it? A chicken tractor,
Yeah.
which is like a mobile chicken run.
So you
can
constantly,
pick it up and roll it around.
it's got wheels and you constantly move it so they can get access to like new grass and stuff like that.
And so one of the guys I saw talking,
Got that Rona.
sorry about that. No. One of the guys that I saw talking about that was like, I move it once a week or whatever.
Yeah.
So like the chemical doesn't have enough time to soak into the ground and affect it anyway.
Yeah.
But so we ended up doing kind of like a hybrid, just the strip of wood around the bottom of the run, just the run is what I use pressure treated on. And then everything up above is not.
Which is also sitting on blocks. So it's not sitting on like the ground.
We dug down like paver blocks and we put a layer of like typically the paver blocks would lay like flat. We put them up on end and we dug down and basically made a trench and lined the trench with the paver blocks.
Right.
So the wood is not actually sitting on the ground. It's sitting on top of paver blocks.
Yeah.
So that goes into play too.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty happy with the way we did it.
It looks awesome. And yeah, I'm hoping I can actually put together a video to like show the process because it was really well done. And the cool thing with your brain is you just thought about it and then now it exists. I'm like, I need a 400-page manual to tell me exactly what I need to do, or like I panic and I'm like, yeah. But it was really cool to watch you do it. And I learned a lot from watching you think through it and try to figure out, okay, like here's the first step, here's the second step. And like, I don't know, I'm not naturally good at thinking through a big project like that while I'm in the moment.
Yeah.
In
all fairness, like if you're watching this video trying to pick up on like what we did and how we went through the process, I don't know necessarily like if I would have just done it the way I did it without talking to Carly about like, I probably would have messed up and not done something very important.
Well, there's a lot of things that chickens, there are a lot of like strategies you have to use to make sure that they don't do certain things. Yeah.
And there have been enough people that have done this to know what to avoid.
Yeah.
That was like the easiest thing for me.
Right.
Like the biggest thing. So like I said, we ended up settling on the coop itself being 6 feet long by 4 feet wide, which, for people that buy lumber, most sheets of plywood or whatever are 4 by 8. So we were able to, the biggest expense for us to do this was we had to buy 4 sheets of, we ended up using 3/8 inch plywood. And we ended up painting it with like random paint that we had. It just luckily matched the house but so the plywood, if you don't have the right tools and like have the eye for measuring and planning ahead, it would have been challenging.
Yeah.
But it was pretty straightforward because if you can imagine, so the base of it is 6 feet long by 4 feet wide. So it's a rectangle. And basically on one side, so you have your coop here, like say your coop here and your run is here. We went 2 feet up, right? So the run goes underneath the coop, and then outside of it, the coop itself, the run that looks like only run is basically 6 feet wide by 12 feet long.
Right.
So, in total, it's 16 feet long, 6 feet wide.
Right.
And when we did the coop build, basically I kind of just winged it. All I did was made one side of the coop that went into the run 4 feet tall, and the side on the other side towards the outside of the run was 3 feet tall. So just the slope of the roof is basically just a 14-degree angle from the front to the back. That's all it is.
If I end up cutting together the footage that I got, I'll link that video in the description of this video or this podcast. So if anybody is ever in the future watching
they find us on TikTok, if they can find you on TikTok, you've got a TikTok video.
That's fair.
That you can see the coop.
That's actually true. I'll try to like link it all together if I can cut it and like make an actual good video out of it. But it's really cool. It's really interesting to watch. I did like a big time lapse so you can see the entire process from start to finish. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, your ingenuity, is that the correct word? It would have been way different if we would have just had like unlimited budget and just go like do it. Sure. Like I would have done it differently. But because we were like doing it for as cheap as we possibly could, and we tried to use scrap wood and whatever for the most part, it like when
we had this idea that we were going to buy windows and buy a door for the run. And like by the end of it, I was just like, we were end up, taking random pieces of glass and cutting it and making our own windows and like, it worked because we had it laying around,
I'm sure he will never watch this, but shout out to a guy named Woodshop Mike. I bought plans, and this is speaking to my inability to wing it as well as you can. But I was like, this was after we had the chickens, and I was like, okay, I'll help come up with the plans to build the chicken coop, and like, you just let me know and I'll go out and build it.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm so naive when it comes to building things. And I shouldn't be, because I have family members who are construction minded. But it's really funny.
I just love your mindset because you're so optimistic about like...
It's like stupid optimism.
Yeah. Like, so she bought this plan. I had seen the plan and it was like nice. Like I watched the video that the guy put together and he was like framing out walls like he was doing a house.
They were doing like French cutout like archways and like really weird.
Like the doors were really nice and like there was all this stuff. And I was like, babe, what is this going to cost? And she's like, I don't know. And she's like,
no, my response was, we have a lot of scrap wood and I'll just go to the restore. And you were like, do you have any idea?
Do you have any clue how much just the framing for the lumber on that's going to cost?
It can't be that much. It's just wood.
Yeah. So I was like, why don't you ask him? I'm like, ask the guy how much the raw materials are. And she did. And it was like $800 or something, like $750 or whatever.
Well, so apparently you can hire him locally to come do it. And he was like, well, it depends on like what you want. Like if you want us to come out, it's like $1,500. And then if you want just like the raw materials cost like $800 or something. And you said it. You were like, that's probably upwards of $800. And I was like, how?
Yeah, I said there's $500 worth of lumber just to frame it out. And you were like, no,
there's no way. I'm like, how?
I love that you watched it and you looked at the plans and like when I was dragging my feet real bad, I'm like, we are not spending that much money on it.
No, and I wasn't planning on it. I was thinking in my head, here are the plans. All we have to do is just plug and play what we already have. And you're like,
she goes, well, we can alter the plans. And I was thinking like, I don't know. I'm like, how much do you think you can do it for? And you're like, I don't like 300. Yeah. You're like $300. And I'm like, I was like, if you can talk Home Depot into selling you everything for 50% off, maybe.
Oh man.
But we did good. We used that 70% off rack. And we did it for way less than what we thought it was going to be.
Well, we had a lot of random crap around the house that was like the paver blocks were here.
The screws. If we would have had to buy screws.
Right. We had screws. We had that glass. We had the glass cutter you bought a long time ago. Like there was so many weird things.
If we would have had to buy tools or anything, it would have been
No, that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't have even been a thought in my mind. Like I knew we had. So your problem is you make stuff that's really high quality and good. And then I'm like, well, okay.
I thought about making like the worst chicken coop ever, but then I would have felt bad if they would have like frozen to death or like had a raccoon eat them.
They've done really well. It's been below 20 degrees a few nights and they're like totally fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, you did a very good job.
We're doing a good job, I think, so far. Like, I'll say I'm proud because the coop and the run is like, I would say very, very predator proof. It's like snake proof, bobcat, coyote proof. Like, I mean, nothing's a bear could probably get into it, but I don't think it would be able to get into. Ace is taking care of the
porcupines, so we're good there.
Oh gosh, yeah. Our dog got quilled. He bit a porcupine and came in with a mouthful of quills. That's a different podcast. Yeah. But yeah, so the challenging thing is like we live in northern Michigan. You all know that. But our winters are rough. And
they
so
can
like,
get pretty snowy.
Yeah. Our first thought was like building the coop where like it was like a walk-in coop where the bottom was like basically on the ground. And the more we started thinking about it, is like, I mean, we get decent sized snakes. But the thing was, it was like, when we get a foot or 2 feet of snow overnight, and that chicken coop is on the ground. Yeah. Like I've actually heard that snow can insulate and actually keep a chicken coop warm.
Right.
But I'm like, you're going to have a pretty tall chicken run.
Yeah.
When you get that much snow. So I think we did it right, making it elevated. And like it's taken probably more like wood chips and stuff to insulate the bottom than I thought it would. But we have a good
deep litter base going right now though.
And it's kind of weird because like a lot of the people that do the chicken coop videos, they live in like Texas and Missouri and like places where it's warmer. year round, and it gets pretty nippy and damp.
I've specifically sought out winter chicken coop people, and they exist. And there's actually a guy, I don't remember, I have no credibility to give right now because I can't remember what his name is, but he lives in northern Michigan, I think like maybe the Upper Peninsula, and he was like, yeah, here's our setup, and here's what we do, here's how we keep them warm, here's what we don't do. And I was like, okay, cool. So there are people that have chickens. I mean, we know that like our next door neighbors have actually 2 or 3 of them all have chickens like down our road or whatever. So we know
it's possible.
Like it's, and I've kind of picked their brains a little bit. And like Becky's Homestead, dude, she has almost 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. She does a phenomenal job of just talking through like what she does and how she does it. Yeah. And it's pretty cool. Like there are so many like chicken, I've gone down so many chicken, whatever. I'm a chicken person now, I guess, because I follow these people and I'm just like, okay, Becky posted another video. I'm going to go watch it. It's like stupid, but okay.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
It really is.
There's a lot of opinions on a lot of things. Like right now, we were kind of like trying to figure out, because it was cold. It was down below freezing in November. Yeah. We're in December now, but like we were like, the worst thing we want to do is, the chickens are how many months old? 3 months old?
They're almost 3, yeah.
So they're not super old, but they're old enough to know how to stay warm.
Yeah.
And, part of it was like, okay, they're kind of small, so they're in this decently sized coop.
Yeah.
And when there's no heating source in it, like a light bulb or a heater or anything, it's basically you have to keep them dry, and you don't want it like totally stagnant. Right. So I left air gaps like along the roof to let airflow go through.
Because the ammonia
can build up and stuff. And so it's not like a box that's totally sealed where if it's warm in there, it's just going to be warm. Yeah. Like air's flowing in and out of it. So they had roosting bars, like we put a cool roosting bar in, and they weren't using it for a while. They would just huddle together like they did in their brooder. And, so part of me was like, man, I hope they like figure this out or like they don't freeze. But in the last couple of weeks, they've kind of figured it out. Yeah. And it's like they're understanding how to use their run a little bit better. Like, it's really funny because they're terrified of blue jays and they all zip underneath their coop, underneath the coop in the run. But they figured it out. Like Carly said, the last few nights, they have actually gone into the coop like at dark, and they've been up on the roost bars, which is awesome. It's
so cool. It's just like the simple joys in life that I get so giddy about. It's like it's so funny because when you have these little chicks and you watch people, I've been watching a lot of people that have chickens, and they do a lot of things where you're like, okay, and they share their strategies and you're like, cool, okay, I'm going to try that. And then you try it and it actually works. It's like, holy shit, that actually worked. Cool. Okay. Like, what's the next thing I need to do? And it's like, you kind of I didn't know everything going into it. Like, I didn't know all the answers. I didn't know it, but I knew I was capable of learning, and I was going to do my best to keep them safe and healthy and, make sure that they're taken care of and everything like that, which I think we've done a good job so far. Yeah. But it's so funny because, like the dumbest little thing where they like all went into there were a few chickens. Okay, so here's the thing. We have the coop, there's a door to the coop, and then we have the run and there's a door to the run. And when they first went into their coop, it was like they would just go inside of it, and we had this little ramp that you built. It was like
chicken ladder.
Yeah, it was basically a chicken ladder, and we put them in their coop, and they like couldn't figure out how to get down. And I was like, oh no, like what do I do? Do I have to train them? Like, so I would literally pick up a chicken and I'd be like, okay, here's how you go in your coop. And I started to say, you have to. So there was a guy that shared like you say a keyword every time, or you have like a symbol. So like his
like a voice train.
Yeah. So his deal was like you carry a bucket out, and like they see the bucket, and like red is a really good color, I guess. Yeah. They see the bucket and they're like, oh, okay, cool. There's stuff in there, and then you can kind of like coax them to do things if you have these like triggers or these signals. So I was like, okay, my thing was like in your coop, like go to bed in your coop. So I would like I felt so weird for a couple days. I was like, what did I get myself into? I look crazy right now. I had them and I'd be like, okay. And I'd put each one up in their coop, and I'd kind of like make their feet go on the little steps. And I'd say in your coop, in your coop. The first couple nights, they just sat like it would start to get dark and they can't see very well in the dark. So that's why they roost and they huddle and they stay still, because technically speaking, if a predator was going to come get them, you don't want to be like running around making a bunch of noise and you can't see where you're running, whatever. So they kind of just all huddled up like down below underneath the coop in the run. And I was like, oh shit, like how am I going to train these chickens?
They were doing the same thing they were doing in their brooder.
Yeah, exactly. They were just all grouped up, sleeping together. So I was like, oh no, I thought for sure I had failed already. I was like, I'm going to just have chickens who don't know what they're doing. So they ended up going, I would do that for a couple nights in a row. And they finally one night, I remember I was looking because we can see the coop out our bedroom window. And I remember looking out the window right when it started to get about dusk, which is when they want to naturally roost. And I'm looking out the window and like two of them are on the ladder. Like one of them's like going up in the coop. And I was just like, babe,
they're doing it.
Babe, they're going into their coop.
Babe, they're doing it.
Oh my God. And like, I
come over here.
Yeah,
they're going up the ladder.
He was like, cool, that's great. And I was like, no, come here. And we all stood there, like the kids, and we were just watching. And one by one, they all started to go up in. And I was like, oh my God, it's working. Like they did it. So, and then there's one we've named them. And Skittle, who's a little skittish.
It was my favorite one.
Yeah,
it's one of the yellow buff Orpingtons.
Yeah, she was the smallest
skittish one.
She's like the runt of the flock.
She hated to be picked up, which is why I liked her.
She's really like
tried to pick her up.
She's really like uncomfortable. She doesn't. Yeah, she's not a big like people chicken.
No,
people person. She's not a people chicken.
Yeah.
So she gets a little weird a couple times. She'll kind of get like left out of the group every once in a while, or she'll like go the wrong way and you're like, what are you doing? So she was out and I had to go like put her up in, but
like out of the whole run.
She was out of, that was a different time. She was out of this time that I was talking about. She was like out of the coop and couldn't figure out how to get up the ladder. And she was just panicking, walking back and forth.
She's the chicken. Like when we let them free range and walk around the yard, like 7 of them will all leave. They like to be under the pine trees that we have in our yard. And like all 7 in a big group will leave and go to a different tree. And Skittles' dumbass will be like sitting around like looking like, what happened? What happened? And we're like, oh, yep, that one's Skittle for sure. She's stupid.
Yeah, like Sylvia. Oh boy. The one that we thought was the rooster, who's kind of like the like pack leader or the
we started calling
leader,
that Sylvester because we were like, oh, maybe it's not Sylvia.
Maybe it's the boy. But yeah, that one will go running and like the rest of them will follow the Skittles like in the back. Anyways, oh my gosh. So we graduated from they couldn't go up into their coop, they had no idea, to they're in their run going up into their coop by themselves, to now they can be outside of the run at the end of the day, and then they figured out how to get into the run and up into the coop.
Yep.
Which
and
is
then they get
so
up on
cool.
the roosting bar, which
and
is
now
awesome.
they're roosting because they used to get into the coop and then they'd all huddle by the window and like stay close. But now they do everything. They're like self-sufficient in terms of putting themselves to bed, and they get up on the roosting bar and they're like totally fine. And I thought for sure it was going to take a long time to get them to that point, but it just took a couple times and they learned.
They're not going to do it.
No, I thought so too.
They're going to be really stupid birds and they're not going to figure it out. I genuinely was like, they're going to be those chickens that just sleep on the ground.
Their instincts, it's crazy how much their instincts really kick in. And we're probably like 4 or 5 weeks, according to like what a lot of people say, around 18 weeks is when they start to become layers, like they actually lay eggs. So we're close to that. We're like probably 4 or 5 weeks out, maybe a little bit more. So
we'll see though, because the daylight plays.
Right.
Like
that's true. Yeah. That's true. They're at 18 weeks, they become of age and their bodies start producing eggs.
Yeah.
In the wintertime, they don't produce as many eggs, but they still produce eggs.
Yeah. It's dark by like 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Here.
It's weird. Like light affects greatly how they lay and like how many times they lay or whatever. So, but we're getting to the point now where I've noticed they're starting to use the roosting boxes. They're starting to get broody, I think is what they call it, where they like sit down in really random places and they just start like sitting for no reason.
Yeah.
And they won't move. And it's kind of odd. But I've noticed their behavior starting to shift a little bit. And I was kind of like, is that what they're doing? Like they sit in the nesting and we have these little fake ceramic eggs that you're supposed to like train them by putting them into the box. And then like they see the egg and they're like, oh, got it. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully it does. But they've started to sit on these eggs in the nesting boxes. And I'm like, holy shit.
I was worried because they were like afraid to get up in the nesting boxes.
Yeah, they
Like,
were really
should we
freaked
kind of
out.
describe like what is actually like what the coop is?
I hope we can link a good
Yeah.
video. That's
Like,
what I'm hoping. Because like
if you
visually,
can picture it, like the way that we did this is, so like I said, it's a 4x6 area.
yeah,
The door is just a small door with a sliding thing. I think we made it like 10 inches wide by a foot tall. So it's just this small door on the big 4x6 foot side that goes into the run. There's just one little door on the outside.
yeah,
And then on the outside of the coop, towards the house, the side, we put two little windows. Like basically we put two little low windows where they can walk around. The chickens can see out perfect, and all of our kids can walk up and their heads are right at the window,
Yeah.
so they can look in and see the chickens. But that part, we made it so that that whole panel basically opens up so you can get in and clean it. And then on the opposite side of the side with the panel, there's nothing.
Right.
It's just solid.
Yeah.
And then on the outside, like where the roof slants down, we match the taper of the roof, and we've got 3 nesting boxes.
yeah.
That's what they're called.
Yeah,
right?
you're supposed to have 1 to 2 per every 4 chickens, I think it is.
Yeah. And we put those like from the floor of the inside of the coop. It's about a foot off the ground into the next nesting boxes.
Yeah.
So it's basically right on in the middle of that side of the coop.
Yeah.
And then the roosting bars, we did, if you can imagine this, from one corner to the other, we put a diagonal bar. Basically what we did was I took a 1x2, I think a 1x2. I think it was a 1x2. Anyway, I ran some scrap lumber through the table saw and made like a 1x2 piece of board.
Yeah.
And then ran everything through and cut 45-degree chamfers.
Yeah, you did it.
On all of it.
So cool. Like,
And so the roosting bar is 2 feet off the floor. I think it's just 2 feet to the bottom of it. And it runs diagonally and then another diagonal. So it's kind of like an odd shape, but I did
It's like
it
a Y.
It's like like a Y with another bar in between. So they've got a ton of different options
and the
for
theory
getting up and
is,
roosting.
yeah, and the theory is you're supposed to have the roosting bars higher than the nesting boxes, or they will sleep in the nesting
Right.
boxes, and you don't want that to
Right.
happen. So
Yep.
we purposefully made that high up, and there's a lot of different designs out there. I'm kind of hoping I can get you to actually sit down and design it like a PDF version, because it would be so cool to share that. Like, I know I'm always of the impression like, oh, we should share everything we do. But like it's really just cool because it's a very simple, it's really simple in like how you designed it, but it's effective. Like the way that it's all laid out. I mean, people like me would pay $5 to get a plan from the internet from some random guy because he had like a cool plan.
It's
like,
really
it would
not
be
hard to do. Like if and it's not the
It
plan.
is for me. like, it's not hard in your brain because you're good.
If
But
you're
like,
decently handy with
Yeah.
like lumber tools and like a screw gun and
Absolutely.
some saws,
Yeah.
it's really not that hard to do. And honestly, a lot of the stuff that I built into it, like instead of having the roof boards just straight, like I cut them all
yeah,
so they looked like they were actually running straight down. You know,
Right.
so like a lot of that stuff was like extra
Yeah.
that is not necessary. A lot of people do stuff that's way less like construction based, you know, like the framing doesn't look like that and
and
stuff.
then there are coops that are literally
Way
like
fancy.
a home.
Yeah. Like ours is not like that, but
It's a good solid coop.
it's like a mediocre
I think it's a
first
good-
coop.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a good coop. I think it would warrant at least designing a plan or whatever.
It's
We can
definitely
definitely-
not like, you know, a rundown little shady chicken coop.
No, it's nice.
looks
It's
nice and
nice,
it's
yeah.
like well done. And
For what we did it with, and the amount of lumber
Yeah.
we used, and like what we actually did to buy all the materials, like I was
how
impressed.
long did it take us? And like keep
it
in
was
mind,
like a couple weeks, but a couple hours a day. Like not every day.
there were a
though.
couple days, right? Like I think 3 days I built the majority of the coop
Yeah.
and had the stuff. But keep in mind, we were using like scrap stuff
Right.
that was
You had
like
to
having to
cut
be like cut
and
down
trim.
and milled down to the
Yeah.
right size and stuff. So if you were going to buy, you know, just stuff from Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever,
Right.
you could do it a lot faster.
Yeah.
So part of me was like, I had to come up with what we were going to do. And then I had to go look outside in
Right.
the yard to see what we had and what I could use. And
Yeah.
like, if I didn't have what I thought, I'd have to alter it. So a lot of it was kind of weird, but yeah, we ended up We ended up painting the whole thing because we didn't use like typical outdoor lumber.
Yeah.
But basically anything that was going to be exposed to water,
right,
snow, rain, whatever, we put a layer of paint on, which ended up looking really nice. And the top, the actual roof part, we bought that new. They were like $10 a piece.
It's like a tin.
It's like it's a galvanized tin. It's the wavy.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's just metal
Corrugated?
siding or whatever
Yeah.
it is. Corrugated, metal. It's thin stuff and like probably, I mean between like just the plywood and the metal, and then we bought like actual screws that sealed it and were galvanized, so
Right.
we weren't getting water down in. That was basically the expense for us because we had everything else.
Right.
So
yeah, it was
turned out pretty good.
It was actually really fun. The kids helped a lot too, which is really cool. Like they helped. We brought some like little sand toy digger things when we were digging the trench, and they were all helping to dig, and like they helped measure things, and like the nesting box, we had to make sure that they could open it up and reach in. So it was really fun. I think they had a fun time being outside and playing.
Yeah.
Like
I think they understand now too, like the process it took, like that we were out there building it, and it just didn't show up. Right. So that was cool for them to get to see it. And the day that we finished it and we were like, okay, it's time to go get the chickens and put them in their coop. Our kids were so excited about that. They were like, yeah, let's go do it. And
it was really fun. It'll be so cool for them to see kind of the fruits of our labor, and to see, like, why is mommy buying chickens like a crazy person? And it's like, when they actually get to reach in and have the egg and like put it in the basket and bring it inside, like that'll be such a cool moment for them to kind of see it come full circle, or full oval. Oh boy.
And I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in the city, and you grew up in the city. So it's like, I mean, I don't ever have any memories of having anything but like a cat and a dog. Right. And like our kids are out there, like our 2-year-old's out there running around. His chickens. Yeah, picking up the chickens and like taking them into the coop and stuff. And it's like, that's pretty cool for me to see.
I will say it too, like the preparation and making sure that we're safe in terms of
the cleanliness. Yeah.
I wear Crocs or rubber boots into the coop, and I do not bring my shoes inside. I take like Lysol and my Coop shoes, Lysol and bleach, and we have like a downstairs stand-up shower, and I found an old like utility sink on Facebook Marketplace for like $15 or something, and I have like a hose attachment from the shower head that's down there too. So like I have a separate sink.
That's
like
I
always spray it down when I'm done using it. I wash my hands. Like I make the kids wash their hands. We like clean up the
Our
poop
girls
outside.
are really good.
They are. Yeah,
they
really
know
good.
that if they go near anything or touch chicken stuff, it's like make sure you wash your hands. Or like we had a hand sanitizer station for a while.
We still do it too. So that's like. That was important to me though. Like I knew if we were going to do it, I was like, okay, we're not going to skimp out on being sanitary, because it's just like, it can get gross real quick. If you live I could not imagine. I mean, we've been to a couple farm settings in the last year or so, and like, it's easy because animals produce a lot of waste, and they're big sometimes. And it's like, it's really easy to get in over your head and be like, oh my God, there's so much like poop to clean up. We're
lucky. We have dogs,
but
our big black lab, who does not have small bowel movements, he hates being like seen when he goes to the bathroom, so he'll go far away.
He runs
to go and like he'll go in the weeds, and like
he's such a polite pooper.
We lived in a place where we had like a big privacy fence, and he would go into the very corner of the privacy fence, and he'd squat down with his head in the corner of it, and he'd look back like, don't watch me do this. Like as far away as he could get. So we've been lucky that we have like some people's dogs, like, they'll poop right outside the back door and stuff. And it's like,
our other dogs,
he's not as good, but
no,
we've only had like 1 or 2 times when like a kid has stepped in it with a shoe or like a barefoot or whatever.
They know to watch out for the landmines too.
Yeah, they know. The chickens are sneaky though.
Yeah.
They have little tiny poops.
They do. Yeah. Yeah. But so it's really fun.
We got to train the kids to watch out for those.
Yeah, they know, like check it poop. It's really fun though. It's a very interesting experience, and honestly, I'm so glad that we just did it, because I think sometimes in my life I overthink things, and I know when I was younger, like in my teens and like early 20s, I used to overthink things so much, and something I would not just be like, you know what, let's do it and we'll learn as we go. I'm confident to know that I can learn and, you know, do the best I can. I don't know if I would have ever done something like that until I hit this age, especially at this time frame of my life, being like, you know what, like, let's do this. We might have some hiccups, we might fail, we might do things wrong, but like, we're going to do better and we're going to progress, we're going to grow. And I'm so glad we did it, because it's really a really cool experience for our kids and for us. And it's great learning. You know, I just feel like it's one step in a direction of something that I want to live, which is, you know, being as self-sufficient as possible on our own land at some point that we can have. That's like, you know,
well, if we ever had to do it again, like now,
yeah, now, you know,
like people would, when we talk to people about it, they'd be like, oh, chickens? Yeah, get them.
Right.
Like, they're really easy. And like,
who said that?
A bunch of people did.
A lot of people were like, oh, just do it. It's like, you'll be happy. The lady that
lives down the street was like, oh, they're really easy.
Yeah.
Like, they're the easiest things. Just get them. And we were like, I don't know. You know, it's like, ooh. Like, yeah. I'm sure there's like people that live on a farm that are looking at us like, what a bunch of idiots. But we're like, you know, before you do it, you don't know. So,
right, exactly. You kind of have to just do stuff every once in a while and figure it out. But
I would have zero limitations or hesitations for doing it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I could probably build a coop, a bigger, nicer coop way faster.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I had, I'll have to like tag her or let her know how thankful I am. But I think I mentioned about this before we got chickens. I was talking to her. But my friend Renee, who has a homestead and she has a bunch of chickens, she actually has meat birds and birds just for eggs. And she gave me a ton of advice, just based off of her own experience. Like, here's what worked for me, or here's what didn't work. Like, here's my advice. And I'm just so thankful. It's in a weird way, because I was really interested in chickens. You start to like seek out people who you have heard or seen posting about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like the Brooke family has chickens. They just got chickens this year too. And it was
really?
like, yeah. And I was like, I messaged her, and it's like, you start to like oddly connect with other people who are kind of like thinking about the same things. Like, and I don't know, it's just a cool experience. So anyways, like, I'm thankful that Renee had all that knowledge and that she was willing to share, because I was like, dude, there were a lot of things that I wouldn't have thought about that you'd have to take a lot of time sifting through YouTube videos or like talking to local people who like have whatever. So it's really cool. But I'm excited, dude. The day when those eggs start rolling in is gonna be. You think I'm a crazy chicken person now? Just wait until we have all those eggs.
I think it's gonna be cool when, like, because you and I know where the eggs are gonna come from,
right?
But I think it's gonna be cool that the girls and Adam get to see, like, our kids get to actually go out and see, like, when we open up the box and look in, there'll be eggs there, and
it's
they'll
like
put two and two together.
For mail.
Yeah, it is.
You know how weird I am about checking for. You know, our kids are going to be like, oh, "Can we go get the eggs?"
Yeah,
it's gonna be so fun.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, and like down the road, who knows? Maybe we'll get like a cow or like, you know, something cool. I'd have a cow.
Don't have a cow, babe.
I don't want goats, but I'd have a cow.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that would. You don't want goat milk? Not a goat milk guy.
I'm not sold on the goat milk.
Dude, the goat milk lotion that I have is perfect.
Every time I use the goat hand soap,
you don't like
freaks
it?
me out.
Really?
I'm like, I don't like it.
Why?
I don't know. I just don't.
Have you ever had goat's milk?
Yeah, I've had goat cheese too, and it creeps me out.
Have you
just
really?
Something mentally about it.
Yeah, it's just like a little.
Like, I can eat wild game. I can eat wild game, but anytime I've eaten squirrel, it's like.
What else could we milk besides a cow or a goat?
You can milk anything with nipples.
Yeah, but like, well, it has to be lactating.
That's from Meet the Fockers.
Oh.
Can you milk me, Greg? Can you milk me? If you don't know what I'm talking about, we need to go watch that movie.
I do know. I just didn't initially get that right. That's funny.
Yeah.
It would be cool. Now, if you can imagine, if we had a garden and we had chickens and we had like eggs and vegetables and fruit, like, oh, that's so cool. There's just something, I don't know. I'm so like weird.
And if I could find a deer in northern Michigan,
we could have venison. I know. You poor guy, dude.
Well, yeah, I think it's been cool.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if they make it through the winter. Who knows? We might have 8 brand new chickens in the spring.
I think they'll be fine.
No, they'll be all right.
I think you need to buy me some chicken paraphernalia for Christmas. I need like the crazy chicken lady shirt or something.
The funny thing about the whole situation was your parents came to visit us, and as they were like, I don't know where you were, but I asked your mom, I said, did you ever think your daughter was going to be the crazy chicken lady? And she was like, haha, yeah.
Yeah, there was no...
She was like, yeah, I can see that. There was
no hesitation. They were just like, yeah, that's the one.
She's not chicken.
I was very into collecting animals when I was younger and like birds, and I don't know, it was really weird. I like nature, I guess, in a weird way. But yeah, it's exciting to think about getting some eggs and all the work we put into it, and we're gonna get
maybe we'll do ducks. I like ducks.
Do they? Have you ever had duck eggs?
No, I don't care. It's nothing in my brain says don't eat a duck egg. I just like the look of ducks.
Somebody told me that duck eggs are really
nasty.
good.
Ducks are wet and nasty.
Wet and wild.
They want to be wet. They get everything wet.
Yeah, we have ponds.
So, yeah.
That's actually kind of cool.
I like
God,
ducks.
we don't need ducks. Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, guys. If you have made it all the way through, congratulations. And if you are thinking about starting your own chicken coop and having chickens, go for it.
Your flock.
Just do it.
Start your flock. Yeah.
Just go get it.
It's really not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
But if you live in a cold area, make sure that you get a breed of chicken that's made
hardy.
Like a hardy chicken breed.
Yeah.
So it'll be easier on them. And if you live someplace hot, don't get a hardy chicken breed. Get something that's made for
get a real fancy breed.
Built for speed or built for comfort. Anyway, if you made it all the way through, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment, give us a like, whatever, send us a text, whatever you want to do.
Say hi, come knock on our door.
Yeah. So until the next one, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.